can confirm, without a doubt, is our equipment is on the surface of the moon, and we are transmitting. So, congratulations, IM team.
We haven't seen a vision like this since Richard Nixon was president and the Vietnam War was still raging. 52 years after America abandoned the missions to the moon, this is the day the U.S. is back in the space race.
But the significance here is that this is now the first successful time we've gone back to the moon since 1972. So that's huge.
When it comes to historic moments in space, today's successful lunar landing marks the beginning of a new era. For the first time in American history, the lunar lander and the rocket booster were both built by private companies, not the government.
So it's going to be a very exciting time, as we make the advancements necessary to learn a lot more about the moon. So this is really that first step. There are 6 NASA tests that are going to be that are actually on there on the payload, and so it's an exciting opportunity to see. Well, kind of a glimpse of the future, to be honest.
Not only a first for commercial space companies, it's also the first time any spacecraft has landed so close to the all-important South Pole of the moon, a dark and mysterious place that could hold priceless minerals and a possible source of water and ice.
The long game here, it's really to learn how to live on the moon, live in deep space, because there are still people who say, next stop, Mars. Well, we've got to reconquer, in a weird sort of way, the moon, learn how to be there, live there.
Like a stepping stone.
That's exactly right. And so this is really important to us.
As John F. Kennedy once famously said, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. And that's been proven over and over. In the past year alone, the U.S., Russia, Israel, and Japan all have had failed missions to the moon. This successful landing puts the United States back on top of the game.
Well, it's exciting because it's all pieces to a puzzle that we talk about so often, because this is now going to lead the way to those manned flights that are going to follow. But we've got to know a lot more about the moon and where they're going to go, because they're going to want to habitate the moon.
The lunar lander itself is about the size of an old-fashioned phone booth with 6 legs for landing and a payload of 6 different items, including artwork and science experiments. It's a mission like this that is paving the way for the future. There will be another man on the moon, or a woman, as it might be.
I think it's huge. I think that's why Space Force was formed. It's very, very important for us to be up in space. You and I were talking a little bit earlier. It's like an old Western gunfight. I'd rather be at the top of the mountain shooting down, than the bottom shooting back up. So it's really about not necessarily dominance, but you've got to be there because the others are trying to be there also.
Here in the space section of the Air and Space Museum, as you can see behind me, it is the Apollo 9. That was one of the missions to the moon where it actually carried humans. Of course, today's mission didn't have any people on board, but it is all paving the way for future missions with human beings as a stepping stone to Mars and beyond. And by the way, NASA has a plan for the first person on the moon, and it looks like it's not going to be a man on the moon. It will likely be a woman on the moon to first step back onto the surface. We are at the Air and Space Museum on a historic day in space travel. Dan Plant, KUSI News.